Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm and our little piece of heaven here in the middle of Nebraska. Some of you have probably been wondering how our vegetable garden is doing after that large hailstorm. So we thought we'd give you a little tour this morning. So we'll go out and take a look and see what it looks like. Stick around. Got another beautiful morning. Big pretty cloud up there in the sky. Now yesterday morning we woke up to a severe thunderstorm. I'll show you what that looked like. No, that's not a problem with your TV. That's what it actually looked like. Knocked the power out for a couple hours. I had to come out and start the generator so we'd have power in the house. But thanks to our local power boys, they got out in that storm, and before the storm was even done, they had the power back on. Now we dodged a bullet with the hail. We didn't get any hail, but the neighboring community where Kelly works, they got hit pretty hard. They got hailed out. We saw a couple people advertise that they were looking for some garden goodies because their garden got wiped out if you had any extra. And then there was lots of damage to trees and stuff like that. We were real fortunate we didn't get that because we didn't need another round of hail, that's for sure. Here's the tree orchard. Excuse me, cat. We are overgrown in our strips, our weed spray strips, because we have had a lot of wind lately where we couldn't do any weed spray. So now I have to come in and weed eat some of this stuff down before it gets sprayed, but everything's growing like crazy. That also includes the weeds along our perimeter fence here have been going crazy that need to be sprayed. But we've been keeping up on the garden out here. So let's take a look in here. Now we got all of our onions picked up out of here the other day because we were getting cool mornings with lots of dew, and those aren't really ideal drying conditions. So we got those picked up and put in the shop. We'll show you those here in a little bit. Might get a little sticky out here walking around in the garden because of the rain we got yesterday morning. We got about 3/4 of an inch almost. So you can see our zucchini, we cut back all of the leaves that were damaged by the hail, and then the upper growing portion of the squash. You can see this big long stem is still gonna produce some stuff. So we're probably still gonna get some zucchini possibly off of these. You can see a couple down in here growing. So that'll be nice. It wasn't a total loss on the squash. And then the collard greens are still growing. We need to come through and take the damaged leaves off of here and feed the chickens. And then these are just going to keep producing, which is nice. The dill's drying up here. Ooh, we got a sneaky weed in here that got away from me. You gotta go. We'll throw that over the fence. But we've got to get in here and get all these overgrown cucumbers out of here. The cucumbers still have some flowers on them, so they're going to produce. And there's some cucumbers in there that we can pick. Our green onions we're just going to dig up and get out of here. And you can see the sweet potatoes came back just fine. We're going to get a handful of sweet potatoes out of these couple little patches here. They were beat down clear to the ground with that hail, and they come back very lush. Let's get this weed over the fence. Brandy, you're not supposed to be in here. Hey, you're going to get all muddy and I'm going to get in trouble. Let's go close that up so she can't come back in. All right, where were we? We pulled the peas out because they were just about done, and we've got plenty of peas off of our 2 trellises here. We really enjoyed those. Another little patch of sweet potatoes. I've pulled out a lot of our marigolds in here because they were kind of growing too much into our tomatoes and not allowing them to breathe. So this one here on the end by the stevia we left because it wasn't really causing us a problem. But the tomatoes took a little bit of damage in the hailstorm, knocked all of our blossoms off. Normally these Sweet 100 tomatoes would just be loaded with cherry tomatoes. You can see that they're not loaded with tomatoes, but we do have some in here. We even have some red ones that we can start picking. These are indeterminate vines, so they're going to continue growing in the growing season. We just have to come out and keep weaving these things through the trellis, and they'll continue to grow. Unlike our Roma tomatoes down there that are indeterminate, they're not going to do as well because they won't continue to grow. That's the difference. These things will grow clear up to winter, and I've even seen people take indeterminate varieties of tomatoes when the tomatoes stop turning red towards winter. They'll pull up the whole tomato plant, hang it upside down in their garage in milder temperatures, and just let the tomatoes that are set on the vine just ripen gradually in the garage, because they won't turn green outside if the weather starts getting cold. You can see there's some more tomatoes down there that we can harvest. That's good for salads and stuff. We'll be out here getting those. We've got to get some more of these tied up. These are some slicing tomatoes, the Celebrity, but these are also indeterminate. They'll keep growing. Celebrities are kind of in between determinate and indeterminate, semi-determinate. But we haven't had a good growing year for tomatoes. I thought we were going to. These down here will do fine. But the determinate varieties, we've had such mild summer this year that we didn't get a lot of warm temps, so they didn't really thrive. Stayed kind of cold and moist, and that's not a good environment for the tomatoes. Same problem with the peppers. The peppers, with the heat we've got just this last week, they're doing better, but they had a lot of their blossoms knocked off, so we're not going to get nowhere near as many peppers either. You can see our San Marzano tomatoes down here. I mean, they're trying, but we're not going to get the crop that we wanted out of these. You can see the vines are still a little beat up, and because they're determinate, most of their fruit comes sort of at the same time. So we're going to get some, but we're not going to get anywhere near what we needed. Next year, I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to plant a whole row of these San Marzanos, and I may go back to doing these in cages because of they're more compact and they're easier to grow in cages than they are on a trellis like this. But we're going to get some out of here. We probably have to take some of our slicer tomatoes and can up some of those too. They don't do as well as these paste tomatoes because there's more liquid in them, but it can be done. These red cabbages we're going to harvest and peel off all the outer leaves. See how deep we got to go on those. I'm sure we can get some edible cabbage towards the inside, and then the chickens can have all of these outer leaves. You can see we had a little pest damage, but that just harms the outside. It doesn't really get to the inside of the cabbage head most of the time after you peel some leaves back. Now the real star of the garden is this butternut squash. It took the hail damage and just laughed at it and just kept on going. This was beat down pretty hard, and then you can see we're still going to get butternut squash. Because look at this vine go. It's grown clear down in here to where the watermelons were, and clear down to the end of the row here. This is the center of the plant here, so you can see how far it goes. Pretty crazy. But this watermelon vine here never did come back. These melons won't be any good. They were all dented up, probably getting soft already. This will have to just be pulled up. Our cantaloupe kept on going, but I don't know if we have any blossoms in there to where it's going to grow melons. I can see a couple little areas where there might be some blossoms, so we may get some cantaloupe out of here. Usually the cantaloupe here, we'll get 40 of them off of one vine. They go crazy. We've got a couple hidden weeds in here. We'll pull these out before they go to seed. You don't want any weeds going to seed in your garden, because that's not good. So we caught those in time. Now this was our sugar baby watermelon. Also got hammered, but there's a little green shoot coming out here. Now whether we have enough time in the growing season for that to do anything, I don't know. But we need to come in and hoe some weeds. The rain lately has been going crazy. Now this is our acorn squash. And I believe the other day when I was messing around out here, I saw some actual acorn squash on the vine. But there's lots of blossoms in here. So we have high hopes that we'll get some of these winter squash also. So let's jump over to the peppers. Same thing as the tomatoes. Just haven't had the warm temperatures that we've needed for these plants to grow. These were the last ones that came out of the greenhouse. These are, I believe these are the habaneros. If you remember, we didn't get any habaneros last year because we've got an early frost, knocked them all out. These got all the blossoms knocked off of them. You can see in here we got some blossoms on these jalapenos. But again, we'll see if we get any peppers out of these. Hopefully we do. Now the bigger peppers, we had been getting some peppers, but some of these are damaged. They need to be picked off of the vine and just discarded. There's some that we could probably get a piece off of. Maybe just one side of it's bad. But hasn't been a good year for the peppers either. The vines are all, or the plants are kind of stunted. This is the best variety here. But even these just now starting to flower again after the hailstorm. You can see up in the tops up here that are still growing. We might get some peppers. Well, that's the tour here. So we'll show you a few more things, but this was once our lush, beautiful garden out here. One hailstorm can really kick you in the pants and set you back. But you can't give up, folks. You got to keep on keeping on, especially with the weeds. You don't want to let your garden get away from you. I know it's tempting in the fall. Sometimes you get tired of gardening and you just want to rest and let things go, but you can't do it, because if you let those weeds go to seed, it's just going to cause you years of problems in the future. We don't have near the amount of weeds out here in the garden as like we do, you can see out here, because we stay on top of it and we decrease the seed bank, the weed seed bank here in the garden. We don't have as much weeds to deal with, and that's what your goal, that's what you're looking for. Now these cucumbers may seem like a waste, but the chickens get these. We did not grow pickling cucumbers this year because we still have loads of pickles in the pantry from years prior. These were slicing cucumbers, and I don't enjoy cucumbers, but Kelly does and my mom does. So you can imagine this cucumber vine here. I think there was 2 plants. How many cucumbers you get, we just don't use them all. So the chickens benefit from that. We try not to waste anything that comes out of the garden. The chickens really enjoy it. And they got to eat too. Our asparagus patch here now we're letting grow, so could get some energy down to the roots of these plants. So this is what asparagus looks like when it's allowed to keep going. Get some weeds mixed in here, of course. Let's take a look at the apples. Here's our big apple tree out here. Still got a pretty good crop of apples on the tree. These won't be ready though for a little over a month before these are ready to go. Hopefully the birds leave some of them alone and let them actually ripen. You can see they've already been pecking at them here and there. And some of this scarring may have been from the hailstorm, but we hope we get enough in here. There's enough on this tree. We hope we can get in here and get some of these in and canned up. You can see the other side of the tree here. Anything that gets any color on it where it starts to blush, the birds get interested in because they think it's ripe. And they test it and they don't like it. And they move on to another one and test it and they don't like it because it's bitter, tart. They're very wasteful creatures. The other apple tree next to it, you can see we've got apples on here as well, but nowhere near as many. But there is some. Birds have been doing their thing over here too. Now, even though it has not been a great growing year for the warm weather vegetables and for maintenance because everything stays so wet, been a great year for compost, that's for sure. This is going to be some beautiful compost. You can see we need to come push the pile up with the tractor. We put all of our grass over here, but this is all 3 of our compost piles that we had combined into one now. And it was probably 6 feet tall, so it's cooked down and doing a real good job this year, heating up and actually composting. You can probably hear that motor running in the background. That's running the pivot, which irrigates the field crops, which you wouldn't think with all this moisture that would need to run, but this last week we had 100-degree temps, so it dried everything up fairly quickly. But that thunderstorm yesterday brought about a ½ an inch of rain, which is not quite enough for the field crops, so they're just making sure that they got enough water on. Good morning, girls. How are you this morning? Girls are up bright and early. They come out and hang out on the chicken tree in there. enjoying their morning. Time to let the guineas out. They go back in every night. Come on out. They roam the property and eat bugs. The young guineas follow right along with the older boys. They're one big happy family now. Till Ruby comes along. We planted a climbing rose over here underneath the windmill because we want it to climb up one side of this windmill. Call it a tangerine sky. It's a beautiful climbing rose, but the guineas ate the first one, so we had to put this cage around to get it up off the ground to where they can't eat all the foliage off of it until it gets established. Boy, y'all sure are noisy this morning. Boy, if you like to mow, Nebraska's your state. Let me tell you. Got lots of mowing to do. But just got to dry up so we can get her done. Might have to mow the yard around the house wet because that gets to be a booger because we bag all that. Here's our onion crop in here in the shop drying. They need to stay in here for a few weeks and get nice and dry. But before winter and then we start getting really cold, these will have to go into the root cellar once they're nice and dry. And they'll last quite a while down there. Now once they start sprouting, we will get them whatever we have left and we'll start chopping them up. And we'll freeze them in like 1 cup increments so we can use in recipes and such. After you freeze them, they're not any good for like fresh eating for salads or anything, but doesn't matter if you're using them in a dish. Ruby, we're going to have to dry you off before we go back in the house. She's been out here running in the tall wet grass and get all wet. Well, I hope you enjoyed our little catch up on the garden space. I'll let you know how it's doing. We didn't get 100% return on it, but we're happy with what we're able to harvest. Our neighbor called and the next variety of sweet corn down the road is ripe. And they said come and get all you want. So we're probably going to can some corn today or freeze some, whatever we decide to do with it. Might do both. So we might do a video on that. So hope you enjoyed our little update this morning. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here on Mark Kelly Farm.